At this very moment, somewhere in the United States, a 67-year-old gentleman is massaging his right shoulder for the 11th time since waking up. He has already visited a chiropractor 2 times over the course of the current month. He has also consulted with 2 different physical therapy specialists. He went ahead and purchased 3 separate supportive shoulder wraps from the local drugstore shelves. He keeps a warm heating pad resting on his bedside table alongside a tube of soothing analgesic cream inside his restroom cabinet. Within half a year, or perhaps even faster, he will be rolled into an urgent care center at 3 o'clock in the morning, hunched over from severe agony caused by a swollen gallbladder that was broadcasting warning signals through his shoulder this whole time. You likely recognize this individual because perhaps he happens to be your spouse. It is entirely possible that he is your dad. Quite possibly. I genuinely need you to reflect sincerely over the upcoming minute and a half because that suffering person could actually be you. Consider that constant throbbing behind your right shoulder blade, which you have continually attributed to an uncomfortable sleeping cushion. Think about that restrictive pressure centered between your upper back bones that becomes significantly more intense following a rich evening meal. Recall that deep pounding along the right side of your neck area, which refuses to fade no matter how much you stretch the muscles. This involves that lingering discomfort which deep tissue bodywork temporarily relieves for roughly 24 to 48 hours before returning fully. Various professionals have assured you that the culprit is simple muscular stress. People have continuously suggested that your alignment and slouching are responsible. Friends have commented that this is merely a natural consequence of celebrating your 60th birthday. Absolutely none of those explanations point to the actual truth. The real culprit resides deep inside your abdomen, roughly 2 inches underneath your right rib structure, within a small organ shaped like a pear that rarely crosses anyone's mind until a medical emergency strikes. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Our community is rapidly approaching 100,000 followers, and maximizing the audience for this specific information directly translates to fewer individuals requiring emergency transport. Modern healthcare infrastructure is primarily organized around controlling immediate discomfort rather than uncovering the foundational trigger. This reality stems strictly from financial incentives rather than any underlying bad intentions. Let us now dive straight into the primary root source of the issue. This is the conventional wisdom you have received, alongside the explicit reasons why that guidance misses the mark. You have been informed that discomfort across your upper right torso area, or tucked behind the shoulder blade, is purely musculoskeletal in nature. This technical term encompasses the complex network of muscles, connective tissues, articulations, and nervous pathways throughout your upper spine. Consequently, your interventions have targeted these specific tissues through massage therapies, spinal manipulations, prescription anti-inflammatory drugs, and targeted steroid shots. While a portion of sufferers experience temporary relief for a few days or weeks, the old agony inevitably resurfaces, alters its presentation, or shifts to a new location. Furthermore, virtually no practitioner seems capable of detailing exactly why these relapses occur. This is the actual explanation. Documented studies within reputable surgical and digestive health publications reveal that for approximately 30 to 40% of senior citizens experiencing persistent upper right discomfort, the true source does not involve the shoulder joint whatsoever. The sensation originates within an internal organ positioned over a foot away beneath the respiratory muscle, broadcasting a warning signal through a pathway that your central nervous system has misinterpreted since infancy. Allow me to break down how this phenomenon of displaced sensory perception functions in reality. Grasping this single physiological concept will completely transform how you interpret physical discomfort going forward. Within human neurology, doctors utilize a foundational map framework referred to as a dermatome. By definition, this represents a specific band of surface tissue connected directly to one individual nerve pathway emerging from the spinal cord. Your entire anatomy is divided into these localized zones extending from the crown of your head down to your feet, mimicking longitudinal grids across a map. Crucially, the surface area covering your upper right torso, the upper border of that shoulder blade, and the corresponding neck region all tie into a common network designated as the 3rd, 4th, and 5th cervical nerve junctions. These specific structures emerge from the spinal column near the very top of your neck area. Here is the vital piece of anatomical insight that your previous healthcare provider omitted during your checkup. There exists a solitary internal organ within your midsection that shares its neural connection with those exact same upper cervical pathways. That structure is the diaphragm, which is the muscular partition dividing your lung cavity from your lower digestive organs. The expansive nerve pathway descending all the way from the neck region to this breathing muscle is known medically as the phrenic nerve. Nestled immediately below the right section of this muscular dome, making direct contact with its underneath portion, rests your gallbladder. Visualize this developmental process. Back when you existed as a tiny 1-month-old embryo no larger than a grain of seed, your developing gallbladder and the tissues of your future shoulder area were touching. They developed side by side, sharing an identical microscopic nervous system territory. Over time, your physical frame expanded. Your internal structures shifted positions to settle into their final adult locations. Your upper limb frame moved outward laterally. Your digestive sac descended to its place underneath the liver, yet the foundational electrical infrastructure was never rewired by nature. Several decades down the road, that primordial embryonic connection remains fully intact and functional. Consequently, whenever your irritated gallbladder transmits an emergency pulse up the phrenic pathway, the information lands in your sensory cortex, appearing to originate entirely from your upper back region. Your central processor is not intentionally deceiving you. Your perception is merely analyzing the incoming data delivery route. It is the small digestive organ itself that is broadcasting with a misleading geographical marker. Prior to continuing our discussion, I must outline critical emergency indicators that dictate you immediately close this screen and head directly to a hospital. This cannot wait until the following morning or the coming week. It demands urgent attention tonight. If you experience sharp upper back discomfort alongside an abrupt, intense abdominal cramping on your right side that undulates and persists beyond 4 hours, you could be experiencing a severe medical crisis that requires immediate attention, so please leave for the clinic. If your persistent upper torso discomfort is accompanied by any noticeable jaundice or discoloration affecting your eyes, even a subtle shift developing recently, seek professional care right away. Such a symptom implies that essential digestive fluids are overflowing into your circulatory system due to a potentially blocked pathway. Should your local joint stiffness occur alongside high body temperatures, shivering fits, or deeply discolored urine, you must go to a clinic immediately. This specific cluster of symptoms strongly indicates a severe bacterial flare-up within your biliary tract that can deteriorate rapidly if left unmanaged. Experiencing upper back twinges in tandem with abnormally light, chalky bowel movements demonstrates that normal digestive fluids are failing to reach your digestive tract, requiring a clinical consultation within the current week rather than later. None of the information presented here is intended to substitute for emergency intervention during a sudden physical breakdown. Our focus throughout this discussion centers on the lingering, low-intensity, multi-year manifestation of this internal dysfunction. This is the exact iteration that standard practitioners ignore for decades until a major rupture occurs. It is important to note that biliary discomfort presents in multiple ways. The issue manifests through 3 individual clinical presentations, each projecting sensory discomfort into the upper back along a unique trajectory. Pinpointing which specific classification aligns with your personal experience places you far ahead of the average individual seeking care. The initial category involves the formation of actual gallstones. Doctors refer to this pathology as cholelithiasis. These are crystallized mineral masses that solidify inside the fluid reservoir. Their dimensions can vary drastically, ranging from minute microscopic particles to objects as large as a playing marble. The associated discomfort feels intense, occurs in intermittent waves, and typically strikes between 60 and 180 minutes following a rich or greasy meal. This manifests as a fluctuating deep ache localized around the upper right torso. The second classification is characterized by thickened fluid accumulation, or what specialists term biliary dyskinesia. In this scenario, the muscular walls fail to pump efficiently, causing the fluids to stagnate, concentrate, and inflame the inner tissues. Sufferers report a lingering, constant, heavy discomfort that frequently intensifies during the evening hours when resting horizontally. Numerous individuals characterize this sensation as an enduring tight muscular knot tucked beneath the shoulder blade that defies all stretching and massage. The third category comprises active acute inflammation of the organ walls, known professionally as cholecystitis. The surrounding tissue becomes visibly engorged, tender, and potentially compromised by bacterial growth. This specific discomfort remains continuous, escalates steadily over time, and is often paired with a mild elevation in body temperature. This precise clinical presentation is responsible for sending thousands of individuals straight to urgent care facilities. Consider the case of an individual we will call Russell, a 71-year-old dedicated athlete who valued his fitness and avoided pharmaceutical reliance completely. He presented with a persistent upper back discomfort on his right side that had been expanding in intensity over the prior year and a half. He followed every standard protocol, which included obtaining a high-resolution joint scan of the area. The imaging results revealed slight wear on the tendon structures, which the radiologist documented as entirely normal for a man of his maturity. He completed 12 weeks of targeted exercise rehabilitation and accepted a localized steroid injection, which provided a brief month and a half of comfort before the agony returned with renewed vigor. He subsequently sought advice from an orthopedic specialist and tried manual spinal manipulation, which offered fleeting relief for only a couple of days per visit. He felt exhausted, deeply discouraged, and began to accept that this structural limitation might be his permanent reality going forward. However, during a casual conversation one afternoon, he shared a minor observation that seemed completely irrelevant at the time. He noted how peculiar it was that his upper back throbbed severely following heavy pasta meals, steaks, or dairy desserts, yet remained perfectly fine after consuming fresh greens, wondering aloud why his joint would react to his diet. That specific insight was the breakthrough that finally unraveled the diagnostic mystery. A diagnostic internal scan of his midsection was immediately requested. The findings confirmed the presence of numerous crystallized mineral stones. The surrounding tissue structure appeared noticeably enlarged, demonstrating a persistent, low-level irritation that had been quietly developing for several seasons. This reveals the precise physiological sequence that had been playing out within his anatomy over that year and a half. Whenever he consumed an item rich in lipids, his internal reservoir squeezed forcefully. This muscular movement is precisely what the organ was designed by nature to perform. Its purpose is to discharge concentrated digestive fluids to emulsify and process rich nutritional elements. Unfortunately, his fluid chamber was completely congested with hard mineral structures. Every single squeeze forced those jagged deposits directly into the tender, irritated interior lining. This physical friction triggered an immediate distress pulse up the length of the phrenic pathway. The electrical signal traveled upward along this conduit, depositing the sensory data into the neck's upper cervical junctions. His cognitive center, which has translated input from that specific neural zone as shoulder sensation since birth, naturally registered the event as structural upper back discomfort. Consequently, he wasted 18 months addressing a joint issue, while hard deposits were actively scraping against his internal lining following any meal containing even a minimal amount of cooking oil or butter. You can easily evaluate your own body for this identical physiological issue right at home without needing specialized medical tools. The initial evaluation is known as the respiratory interruption assessment. Begin by resting horizontally face up on a flat surface. Locate the bottom edge of your right side rib structure. Position 3 fingertips within the yielding tissue, immediately beneath that lowest bone, roughly centered between the rib border and your navel. Apply careful pressure inward and angle your fingertips slightly upward in the direction of your right collarbone. Maintain that manual pressure while drawing a deep, deliberate inhalation through your nostrils. If you notice a sudden, sharp hitch mid-breath that forces you to halt your inhalation, this serves as an indication that the underlying organ is swollen enough to collide with your hand, as the descending lungs compress the abdominal cavity. Within clinical diagnostic texts, this reaction is designated as a positive Murphy's sign, representing one of the most reliable manual indications of active tissue irritation. A normally functioning organ allows for smooth, uninterrupted breathing. An irritated organ triggers a sudden, involuntary stoppage of the breath. The second diagnostic approach involves maintaining a dietary and discomfort log. Over the course of one full week, document every item consumed along with the exact hour of ingestion. Concurrently, note every single instance where you experience twinges in your upper right torso, back, or neck area, marking the corresponding time down carefully. Once the week concludes, cross-reference these two timelines against one another. If you observe that your discomfort reliably flares up within a few hours of eating rich dishes, fried items, dairy products, or heavy proteins, yet remains completely absent when you stick to lighter fare, this recurring correlation is absolutely not a matter of random chance. That specific timing reflects a classic digestive pathway issue, which warrants a proper diagnostic imaging scan of your abdominal area. To explore the exacerbating factors, three specific dietary habits heavily accelerate this internal breakdown, and they appear consistently across almost every clinical case I evaluate. The initial culprit centers on heavily fried menu items. Deep frying saturates food with degraded lipids, forcing your system to secrete massive quantities of digestive fluids just to manage the load. An impaired, sluggish organ simply lacks the capacity to process that sudden demand. Consequently, every single greasy meal triggers an acute muscular pumping crisis within the abdomen. The second factor involves consuming highly processed starches and sweet treats late in the evening. The vast majority of individuals remain completely unaware of this physiological connection. Flooding your system with processed sugars spikes your body's hormone levels, instructing your metabolic center to synthesize excessive amounts of cholesterol. This surplus of cholesterol within the digestive fluids serves as the primary structural building block for hard stone crystallization. Enjoying a slice of dessert at 9 o'clock at night essentially initiates a crystal manufacturing operation that runs continuously while you rest. The third accelerant is severe calorie restriction and missing regular meals. This particular mechanism often surprises people because it seems entirely contradictory. When you avoid eating or severely limit nutritional intake, your fluid reservoir experiences no stimulus to pump. As a result, the digestive fluids stagnate inside the chamber for extended periods, steadily concentrating and losing liquidity. This stagnation rapidly leads to the formation of thick internal sediment. Once you finally consume food, it forces a powerful, sudden contraction against that viscous sludge, initiating an intense bout of pain. Maintaining 3 balanced meals daily with clean lipids spread evenly throughout the day remains vastly superior for internal health than consuming giant portions separated by huge fasting windows. Turning our attention to therapeutic choices, here are 3 specific items you should integrate into your diet starting this evening. First, incorporate whole beets, whether prepared cooked, eaten raw, or consumed in liquid juice form. This root vegetable contains a powerful nutrient known as betaine, which naturally reduces the viscosity of internal fluids and optimizes the liver's production capabilities. Aim to consume roughly half a cup of this cooked vegetable on a daily basis. Second, focus on bitter leafy options such as dandelion greens, arugula, radicchio, and endive. The raw sensory experience of bitterness immediately stimulates fluid movement via an internal neurological mechanism termed the cephalic phase response. Eating a modest portion of these greens prior to your primary dish readies the organ to empty smoothly and progressively, avoiding the intense spasms triggered when heavy fats arrive unexpectedly. Third, make a habit of enjoying crisp apples and pears. These fruits supply high amounts of pectin, a viscous fiber that actively attaches to cholesterol molecules within your digestive tract and aids their elimination, diminishing the core components required to build stones. Simply consume 1 whole piece of fruit each day, ensuring you leave the outer skin intact. Let us map out the daily routine. The regimen consists of 5 step-by-step actions spanning from your morning wake-up to your evening rest. Upon waking and prior to eating anything, consume a mug of heated water blended with a single tablespoon of raw apple cider vinegar and the fresh squeezed juice of half a lemon. This ritual mildly kickstarts the clearance of digestive fluids that naturally became concentrated during your hours of sleep. Follow this by spending 5 minutes performing targeted lateral stretches, slow torso bends, and across-the-body reaches to increase mobility around your upper right abdominal section. As the day progresses, transition your eating habits away from sparse, heavy portions toward 3 or 4 compact meals distributed uniformly across your waking hours. This pacing effectively eliminates the prolonged periods of fasting that directly cause fluid crystallization and thickening. Make sure to allocate your nutritional fat intake across all of these smaller meals rather than concentrating it entirely into a single sitting. Prior to eating midday, consume an infusion made from steeping 2 tablespoons of dehydrated dandelion root in hot water for a quarter of an hour. This option is wonderfully bitter, highly cost-effective, and stands as one of the most clinically verified fluid stimulants available in traditional botanical practice. When nighttime arrives, prepare a modest meal completely free of deep-fried components, thick dairy bases, or heavily buttered presentations. Structure this specific meal to contain the absolute lowest percentage of lipids out of your entire daily intake. Afterward, make a firm commitment to engage in a continuous 10 to 15-minute stroll immediately following your meal. Engaging in light physical activity post-meal promotes abdominal circulation and fluid clearance in a manner that synthetic capsules simply cannot match. Prior to drifting off to sleep, position yourself horizontally on your left side for a brief period with your knees softly curled upward. This specific posture alleviates physical compression on the organ located on your right side, facilitating optimal structural drainage while you rest. The average individual typically rests on their right flank or spine, which inherently pinches this localized anatomical zone. Making this minor adjustment to your sleep hygiene yields significant long-term benefits over time. Our tennis player implemented these precise modifications into his daily routine. Inside of 21 days, his persistent upper back discomfort had diminished to a significant degree. By the end of 60 days, the chronic soreness had vanished entirely. To be clear, the physical mineral stones remain present within his system. This specific lifestyle approach does not melt away solidified mineral structures, but his regular flare-ups ceased entirely due to reduced tissue swelling and the elimination of dietary triggers that caused aggressive organ spasms. Certainly, a segment of individuals experiencing similar symptoms will ultimately require a standard surgical procedure to extract the organ. Conversely, others will successfully control the condition through careful nutritional adjustments for the remainder of their years. The optimal long-term strategy relies heavily on the physical dimensions of the deposits, the extent of the tissue irritation, and a collaborative discussion with your primary healthcare provider. Crucially, none of those constructive medical choices can occur until someone finally identifies that the upper back joint is entirely innocent. Here are 5 concrete actions you can take starting this very evening. First, execute the manual respiratory interruption assessment on yourself. Apply gentle upward pressure beneath your right rib border. Inhale deeply, check for an involuntary halt in your breathing, and document the outcome. Second, begin keeping your personal nutritional and discomfort log starting tomorrow morning, tracking patterns over a full week to check for correlations with rich food items. Third, completely eliminate all deep-fried selections and rich dairy bases from your meals for a full 2 weeks while observing changes in your upper back comfort. Fourth, introduce the warm citrus drink upon waking alongside the brief post-dinner stroll, implementing 2 effortless habit adjustments that cost nothing. Fifth, if you establish that your upper torso soreness routinely follows the ingestion of lipid-heavy dishes, ask your physician for an internal abdominal scan during your upcoming visit. This diagnostic test is entirely external, completely comfortable, standard across medical practices, and requires less than a quarter of an hour, so feel free to request it directly. I have one final thought before wrapping up today. Actually, let us make it 2 quick closing items. Please share your current age down in the comments section below. Understanding the demographic makeup of our viewership directly influences which physiological subjects we prioritize for future discussions. For instance, tailoring a presentation for an audience primarily in their early 60s requires a completely different focus than crafting material for individuals in their late 70s. Additionally, let me know your current viewing location by typing your city, state, or nation into the interaction area. Tracking the geographic reach of this educational content allows me to pinpoint precisely which communities stand to benefit the most from these vital wellness insights. Furthermore, if a family member or friend has struggled with persistent right-side upper torso pain for months without finding a lasting remedy, please share this broadcast with them immediately. They have undoubtedly been assured that their joint is the root issue and have likely received standard therapies that completely overlook the actual biological trigger. By doing so, you can provide them with the foundational anatomical clarity that no previous medical appointment managed to deliver. Remember that your upper right back is not structurally failing you. It is simply serving as an emergency transmitter for an internal organ that lacks any alternative method to signal its deep distress. Once you begin decoding that sensory warning, rather than merely suppressing the discomfort, your physical frame can finally initiate true recovery. So remember to subscribe, drop a like, and share this knowledge forward.